This is fundamentally the biggest thing that we are looking for right now in the whole world of XRP. And no one's treating it like that. Everyone's treating it like, oh yeah, that's cool. This is like the make or break. I'm not even exaggerating with that. Man, have I got some insights for you today. So much has been going on here recently. A lot I need to dive into. We've got David Schwartz, who either used to be or currently still is the CTO at Ripple. He's given some comments on AMMs I think has massive implications. You haven't heard this before, by the way. I know we're talking about AMMs, but this is way deeper, has way bigger implications. And actually, this could be the crossroads between whether XRP goes to a high value or not at all. And so I think there are massive implications with this. We're going to provide proof all along the way. We're going to talk about the global banking system and how XRP integrates into that, along with this narrative that Ripple and XRPL seem to be building, and where that crossroads actually lies between high price or low price XRP. Welcome back to the macro. So I've seen David Schwartz on a few interviews recently, and he's been talking about how institutions no longer want what they call manual liquidity. It made me think about this whole situation where David Schwartz has said a lot of stuff over the last few years. And what's really interesting is that he's like a genius. He actually is a genius. And so when you look at him saying something, you can't say that's a stupid thing that you said. It's like not possible, because he's saying things that are very accurate and they're true. But, and there is a but here, and I openly welcome David Schwartz to comment on this, or you can send it to David Schwartz. I think he would agree with this. Whenever he makes a statement or a comment on something that has big implications, it's because he's talking within the context of that moment. So for example, in 2014, you make a comment in 2014 about XRP. That comment is actually about XRP in 2014. There is no way to project where the future is going to go, the specific details of it, but all you can do is, as time develops and as the systems change, XRP's role should also change and adapt to the time that you're currently in. And so it made me think of, he was saying how the role of XRP in 2012 to 2014 is not the same as it is now. Things have changed. AMMs are playing a bigger role. These big banks and the whole situation, they want unified systems across different ledgers. They want no risks with smart contracts, for example, and they want what's called always on liquidity. That is a very different situation than the correspondent banking system that has previously operated. Now, in that previous system, David Schwartz has also made the comment that XRP cannot be dirt cheap. You will all know this. This is synonymous with the idea of XRP going to very high values. And I can sit here and right now and say that him saying that XRP can't be dirt cheap is only a reflection of the situation in 2017 when he made that comment on a forum website called Quora. That is not the case right now. I've been doing all the research, all the deep diving into all the banking documents, and it's suggesting to me right now, XRP does in fact not need to be at all a high price to function. I think everyone would agree that XRP works better if they have a higher price of XRP, but with the desires of governments and banks to actually move towards a more efficient system, and when I say more efficient, I mean payments move faster. With a higher velocity asset, you actually need less of the asset held in reserve. Perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself here. We will talk about that in more detail later on in the video. But what I'm trying to suggest is that the way things operate right now and the role XRP has and the requirements of XRP in today's world is not the same as it was in 2017. In 2017, liquidity was manual. There were no AMMs. There were no side chains. There was no kind of modular architecture to this whole thing. That's going to be a really important phrase as we move forward here in this video. And banks were using pre-funded Nostro Vostro accounts at that time. In that architecture, absolutely, XRP did need to be a high price. That is not the case anymore, but there is a saving grace, and I think it's come out of the new role of XRP in this new system. This is all based on my research, and the proof will always be shown on screen. That's just what we do in the macro. Okay. Fundamentally, the rails have changed in the whole system here. The Bank of International Settlements, the central banks and major institutions are calling and moving towards something called a tokenized unified ledger. And that's where all central bank reserves, you've got commercial deposits, you've got government bonds and tokenized assets, they all live on one programmable platform. This is what they're moving towards. That's undeniable. This is the system we're going towards. But what they're all showing, and this is the crossroads that we're about to approach here, what they're all showing is that they want higher efficiency. Higher efficiency means an increase in the velocity of money. The increase in the velocity of money, as it specifically relates to XRP, means fewer tokens are required to do the same job, right? Because you can use tokens very quickly. You can just put them back and then use them again, put them back and use them again. The higher that velocity is, the fewer tokens you need, the fewer tokens required, the less tokens are taken out of circulation, which means a lower price requirement for that asset. And so when you get into the world of talking about high velocity payments and highly efficient payments, you actually get some very worryingly low XRP prices just based on that utility alone. I mean, even as low as 4 cents as a utility requirement to do these payments. 4 cents. I've done the calculations on it. We don't really want highly efficient systems, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword here. We know, though, the banks are moving towards a highly efficient system. They want increased efficiency. If you want to argue with me on increased efficiency and how the banks actually don't want that, I welcome the argument because this is a no-brainer. If you got a bad system, you want to increase efficiency to make it better. There's no argument to that. The double-edged sword of increased efficiency, of course, is that ultimately you need a lower price for XRP to actually do that. And so that should be quite worrying. However, David Schwartz has been talking very recently about AMMs, and there's also been conversations about what's called ZK rollups. This is fundamentally the biggest thing that we are looking for right now in the whole world of XRP. And no one's treating it like that. Everyone's treating it like, oh yeah, that's cool. This is like the make or break. I'm not even exaggerating with that. So ZK rollups, let's explain what ZK rollups are. You have a layer 1, for example. That might be Ethereum or it might be XRPL, any layer 1 blockchain. Imagine you've got an entire city of people that want to make a payment. But in order to make that payment, they actually have to go to the town hall, like the city hall or whatever it is. Everyone has to go there to make that payment. So what you end up with is obviously there's going to be chaos. It's like not a good way to do it. This is not efficient at all. And so what we end up proposing here is now a 2-part efficiency equation. Because you have efficiency in speed, that's velocity of the crypto, but then you have efficiency in how that actually works, right? In the actual functioning of it. So what ZK does is it stands for zero knowledge. That will make sense in just a second. So I want you to imagine it like this. If every person had, thousands of different hubs around the city where they could make their payment at those different hubs, that would be way more efficient because then people wouldn't have to go to the town hall to make their singular payment. What they do with ZK is they roll all of those payments up, all of the people that made payments all around the city, they would all get bundled up into one single kind of note that is given to the town hall. What this does is it has a 2-pronged effect. One, it makes everything very simple. So the whole network of kind of payment terminals that people would have is very large, but they do their own work to consolidate that information, and it's all verified and everything, like it's all true and accurate. They consolidate all that information, give it to the town hall in one, here you go. There's this is the amount of money we need to move, and we're going to do it all at once. And so when I say all at once, it could be every minute, it could be every hour, it could be every day. I wouldn't think that they're going to do it outside of a day because the system already does that. So we want to have increased efficiency. So I would say it's likely that they do these roll-ups every hour or something, maybe every minute. But what we've missed here is the ZK part. It stands for zero knowledge. And this plays a massive role, a completely underestimated role in the world of global banking and international settlement and all of that stuff. And it comes via the whole world of privacy. Okay, so let's get into privacy because this is another one of those levers. This is the crossroads now, privacy versus velocity. Really important. So the reason it's private and the reason it's called zero knowledge is that all the transactions that happen around that city, that example city that I'm talking about, the details of those payments, the context behind them, none of that information gets to the town hall. The town hall just gets the piece of information that says this much money needs to be sent, right? And then it just executes, right? That acts, the ZK element of that acts as a privacy buffer. a privacy layer. We covered in a previous video how this privacy layer is of extreme importance to the CBDC and stablecoin world. We provided proof on all of that in the last episode as we talked about Chainlink and some other assets that are playing a role there. But CBDCs and stablecoins fundamentally require privacy. And it doesn't matter about like whether you think they're doing nefarious things or hiding things from the public. Maybe it doesn't matter. What we do know is that banks want privacy, and ZK rollups provide a very easy way to do that. This is the Crossroads. We're going to go into proof as to why ZK rollups are actually being of interest to Deutsche Bank and all kinds of stuff. We're going to get there. I'm going to try and do this without as many cuts as normal. So this is all like just in my head here. Bear with me. So you've got a two-pronged crossroads here. And that crossroads is, with privacy, go in the privacy route. If you want privacy as a central bank, you want to use ZK rollups. But there's something about ZK rollups that fundamentally changes the velocity of the money, right? Do you see where I'm going with this? Because if we use ZK rollups and they bundle up the transactions and do it at one time, what ends up happening is you are naturally, just by the nature of that, slowing down the payments, meaning you are making payments less efficient, but in return, you're getting more privacy. And so on the other side, if you're not using ZK rollups, you are just chasing for the fastest velocity you can get while still being secure. And what that means is that the price of the asset that solves all of those problems is going to go down because you need less tokens out of circulation to do that. And so you end up with this catch-22. Do we want no ZK rollups and a low-priced XRP, but increased efficiency, which is of top priority to the banks? Or do you want privacy as well, which would reduce the velocity, therefore reduce the efficiency, but allow you more privacy? This side also means the price of the asset underneath. There needs to be more of that asset locked away to provide the liquidity to do a ZK rollup transaction, because you're doing a larger payment all at once. And so you need more assets, so the price would be higher for the asset. Are you following? The question becomes, what indications do we have to suggest that we're moving towards a ZK world? Or what indications do we have that they're going purely just towards greater efficiency, which means greater speed, which means lower price of the asset they're in? And so having done the research here, I kind of realized they want the efficiency, but they also want the privacy. And so there's going to have to be some sort of balance that takes place where they sacrifice speed, efficiency, and increase privacy efficiency. And so we have to decide which direction is this going, because we can see the Deutsche Bank, I'm probably showing that on screen, they released a DAMA2 light paper. This is all talking about tokenization and servicing on Ethereum layer 2s. This is using ZK rollups to do so. You can see that Deutsche Bank are actually turning towards layer 2s for compliant tokenization of assets. That's because they want to manage a private order flow. This is the privacy part of it. They want something to be compliant friendly, but also private. That's a really important one. They want zero exposure to all the internal positions that they've been taking. They don't want people to know about all that stuff, but they're still anchored to the main chain to allow for settlement to take place. And ZK rollups provide all of that. They're doing the tests. They've been running the tests. Like I said, Deutsche Bank's been doing it. There's been other tests that are taking place as well. And just before I kind of give my opinion on what's going to happen here, I think we have two options here. Higher efficiency brings the price of XRP down, certainly when we talk about velocity efficiency. Then if you've got privacy, it will push XRP up in price because ZK rollups would naturally be a part of that system and greater amount of tokens would be needed per transactions. So what are the indicators to suggest that we are moving towards ZK rollup kind of systems? Well, you can actually see on the XRPL, they have some standards there and a roadmap for how they're going to progress things. You have something called the confidential MPT standard, and that is where the XRPL has a proposed institutional grade privacy standard called MPT. This stands for multi-purpose tokens, and they use ZK proofs and encrypted balances. You also have a Ripple engineer called Ayo Akinyele who discussed ZK proofs and said that the XRPL aims to be the institution's first choice for innovation and trust, with ZK privacy tools coming. So we know that the XRPL has privacy tools coming via this whole ZK kind of system and world. You also have the XRPL's EVM integration via a company called Axelar. This is also playing a very important role in the whole idea of ZK rollups and cross-chain interoperability and tokenization and Really, really interesting stuff. And even more than that, you have the RLUSD. This is Ripple's stablecoin. They have a ZK rollup prototype confirmed at Apex this year. So there was a talk at Apex 2025 this year that described RLUSD micropayments via a ZK rollup on the XRPL EVM sidechain. So we know that these things are happening, but there are a few missing pieces that give us that full confirmation that ZK rollups are really taking place. Let me remind you, if you want the price of XRP to go up, you need ZK rollups to play a role in this future. So if you're serious about like really looking out for this stuff, and you know, if you want to be early on something, geez, this is the opportunity to be early. Like we are understanding ZK rollups on the XRPL with all the evidence and the precedent that the Ethereum has made on this area. We know the companies that work with Ethereum to do this. We can look out for those on the XRPL. We're going to get into some other signals that we can look for as well, because we're so early to this, there are actually no projects to invest in. Like that's how early we are. This is where we want to be. So as soon as they crop up, we want those alerts to come through. They will come through on the macro, of course, so subscribe. And then we want to make our move, so that we can be involved in the transition to this ZK rollup world on the XRPL. So what we need to be watching for next, we need to be looking for rollup as a service providers actually adding the XRPL to their systems. You might be aware of companies like AltLayer or Caldera. These companies offer rollups as a service to blockchains. And so if you see Caldera, for example, start talking about how they're launching an XRPL rollup, we need to be paying attention to that and getting involved as soon as possible. That's a really big signal, because these are companies that also played a very big role in creating rollups as a service for Ethereum as well. If I start seeing Ripple talking about privacy more, even not directly about rollups, more about privacy, obviously if they talk about rollups, that would just be golden situation. But if they're talking about privacy, you know this is on their mind and you know they're going to progress towards it. These guys are always 3 steps ahead. Then you want to see more of the central banks starting to test the world of ZK rollups. We've actually already seen the IMF made a paper on ZK rollups, which is quite interesting to read. The Bank of Canada also did the same thing, testing these ZK-based settlement systems, but we want them to name the XRPL in doing so. We would also want to see more integrations on the XRPL with companies like Axelar or Squid. We actually already have an integration with Squid, so this is really good news. Actually, it's a really big signal. Or a platform called Layer Zero. Watch out for these companies and them mentioning the XRPL. This is big stuff, because that really would indicate to us that they're moving towards ZK rollup world. Okay. So really what I'm seeing here is a massive push for efficiency in velocity. That means faster velocity. But I'm also seeing this massive demand for privacy. And the only way to effectively get privacy is to use ZK rollups in this situation for payments. And we need to see which direction is going to be favored more. Because let me just highlight this. Let's say the efficiency score of money velocity right now is 2 out of 10. Let's say that's the situation right now. If you turned it up to the max for XRP with the maximum velocity efficiency, you'd end up with like a 9 or a 10 out of 10 score. But are they going to go for a 10 out of 10 velocity efficiency score, but sacrifice the privacy? I doubt it. I think they're going to want privacy and efficiency. And so I think the criteria for deciding how much efficiency velocity do you need, I think it just has to be better than the previous system. So if you're at a 2, as long as we're at a 3 or a 4 or a 5, then we have become more efficient, but we've maintained privacy. I think that's how this thing is going to go. I think it's a really reasonable way to see it going. We just have to see how big this privacy layer is, and that will impact the velocity efficiency score that they're happy with. I hope you're all following that, and it just shows their decision making and my kind of logical thinking about this, because if we start to see privacy is more of a concern than drastically upheaving the efficiency, that's a very good thing for the price of the assets that are being used on the settlement layer. I don't know how else to say it. XRP would go up in value at that point. If we start to see that they actually favor efficiency to a greater degree than they appreciate privacy, and want to go kind of to the 8 or 7, 8, 9, 10 level out of 10 for velocity efficiency, then that's bad news for XRP. Just putting it out there. All I know is the documents I've been getting into, the rational and logical thinking behind this, and that is entirely informing what I've called the inevitable portfolio. This is a portfolio of crypto assets and stocks and equities that have been all consolidated based on the news and where we're seeing things going into one single portfolio. You can find that entire portfolio on a calculator that I've created where you can visualize the whole portfolio there, and any of the equities and any of the cryptos that are in this portfolio, you can actually get them on eToro. The link is in the description. I would really urge you to register an account with eToro and get your account ready, because very soon I'm working with eToro on something to allow the inevitable portfolio to be a basket investment that you can access and actually start to invest in. Remember, all of these assets are informed by deep research as well. If you're very precious about your crypto and you don't want crypto on eToro, that's fine. You can also go to Caleb & Brown. They are the best in class brokerage for crypto around the world. Can't say anything better about them. Incredible stuff. We're going to be back next week with another deep dive on all of this stuff and how these things are all moving. I'll be updating the entire inevitable portfolio as we go, as new information comes out. If you found this video at all valuable, please share it with someone. Subscribe to this channel to be updated when I make my next video, because that's going to be pretty soon. There's going to be more amazing stuff to talk about and get into this. If you really like these deep dives, click like. Stay emotionless. I'll see you in the next episode of The Macro.